Now, the rest of the story. Black clouds gathered on the horizon. The captain watched anxiously. The storm was nearing him, and he was nearing it. Soon the cargo ship would be riding high seas. It was mid-afternoon when they clashed, but the sky was a starless night. All hands hurried to their stations. Some of the crew had never seen the Atlantic more fearsome. Others, the older ones, clenched their teeth, recalling near disasters of years gone by. The vessel pitched and tossed like a matchbox on the swells. The ocean yawned and spit, and tons of seawater inundated the deck. But just when it seemed that the worst was coming, the rain and the rolling subsided. Slowly the skies cleared. By dawn the water was calm, as though the storm had been only a frightening dream. The remainder of the voyage was uneventful. The ship arrived in port, her cargo safe, not quite sound, but that is the rest of the story. The vessel had sailed from South America bearing coffee. The recipient of that shipment was one of the largest coffee companies in Europe, the owner, Dr. Ludwig Roselius. Dr. Roselius had inherited the business, and yet he was not content merely to imitate his founders. He was always seeking to improve, to enliven, to diversify. And then arrived that South American coffee shipment in 1903. First word from the dock was that some of the cargo had been spoiled. Dr. Roselius was furious. He went immediately to investigate, and this is what he discovered. Not all of the coffee that he had ordered had fit into the cargo hold below decks, that which had remained untainted. But the rest of the shipment had actually been lashed to the exposed upper deck of the vessel, and when the seas rose and the salty sea water had poured onto the deck, it also poured into the coffee. Well, Dr. Roselius inspected that portion of the shipment. It was indeed unfit for commercial use. Aggravated, the owner turned to his employees. "Have the fresh coffee unloaded as quickly as possible," he ordered. "And for the rest, the bad batch, turn that over to company researchers for experimental purposes. No sense in counting it a total loss." And that is the way Dr. Roselius was, never wasting a thing if he could help it. And in this case, his thrift paid off as he could never have imagined. That is, the bad batch made good. For Dr. Roselius had been experimenting with various ways to remove from coffee most of its caffeine. Thus far, each experimental process had failed until 1903. For it was then that a salt-spoiled shipment of coffee reacted differently in testing, and that difference led to a new approach, which eventually succeeded in removing 97% of the caffeine without harming the coffee's flavor or aroma. Well, Dr. Roselius was delighted, and he named his new decaffeinated coffee after a contraction of two French words meaning without caffeine. As French words, they mean without caffeine. Anglicized, sans caffeine becomes... You're ahead of me now. You already know that the coffee product that came from a mishap at sea was Sanka. Only now you know the rest of the story.
And now, the rest of the story. You know, most of us cannot begin our day until we've had a steaming hot cup of coffee. While some of us drink it because we enjoy the aroma, the taste, and the ritual, most of us drink it to get that caffeine boost that we need to jumpstart our day. Those of us who drink caffeinated coffee throughout the day can experience the negative side effects of caffeine, such as increased anxiety, jitters, and sleep disturbances. Those side effects led Ludwig's search for a process to remove caffeine from coffee. Now, in this episode, Mr. Harvey explained the sort of accidental origin of Sanka coffee and of the name Sanka. In 1905, shortly after Ludwig's employees perfected caffeine-free coffee, he began selling it under the company name of Kaffee Haag, which is short for Kaffee Handels Aktien Gesellschaft. Whew, that's a hard one to say. Now that translates to Coffee Trading Stock Company. When the brand expanded to France, it was sold under the name Sanka, just as Mr. Harvey explained. In 1914, Ludwig incorporated the Kaffeehag Corporation in Albany, New York, and began selling decaffeinated coffee in the United States. By the end of May 1914, newspaper advertisements showed a rendering of the factory in Bremen where the caffeine is extracted from Kaffeehag, and boasted that Kaffeehag was perfect coffee with 95% of the caffeine removed. The ad referred to caffeine as an injurious drug and claimed that Kaffeehag was recommended by doctors when the use of ordinary coffee is forbidden. It has the endorsement of physicians, hospitals, and sanitariums throughout the world. It is perfect coffee and agrees with everybody. But the timing couldn't have been worse. On June 28, 1914, almost a month after Kaffeehag began advertising in the United States, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo. This assassination was one of the key events that directly led to World War I. Now remember, Kaffeehag was a German company, and Germany and the United States were enemies during the war. In response to the question of what to do in such a case like this, our government created the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, which was put into place to assume control and dispose of enemy-owned property in the United States and its possessions. An investigation in 1918 led many people to believe that German businesses, like German propaganda, had laid its plans far in advance, and these schemes included the control of considerable number of American firms or factories with headquarters in this country. The Office of the Alien Property Custodian believed that German companies were founded in the United States so they would have influence among business concerns in this country during the war, and concluded that many of the companies included the word American in their title to camouflage their sinister plan. Among these were the American Lava Company, the American Linters Company, the American Storage Company, the American Lumber Company, and the American Products Company. Their investigators listed no less than 71 firms with a total value running well up into the hundreds of millions of dollars, whose property was to be seized by our government. Most of the brands listed in the confiscation are unrecognizable to us today because they were not reestablished after the war, or if they were reestablished, they did so under different names. Some you may recognize include the Bosch Magneto Company. Now, they make Bosch spark plugs. And the Bayer Company, makers of Bayer's aspirin. On May 20th, 1919, Francis P. Garvin, alien property custodian, sold 5,000 shares of capital stock and other property belonging to the Kaffeehag Corporation. Kaffeehag was sold to an American firm, and Ludwig Roselius lost his company and his trademark rights to the name Kaffeehag in America. The new owners continued selling the coffee and, to add insult to injury, boasted that Kaffeehag is one of America's fruits of the Great War. Following the war, Ludwig had to reestablish his caffeine-free coffee in America. On February 8, 1924, Ludwig's first advertisement for Sanka coffee appeared in the Evansville Journal. The ad noted that the caffeine is extracted in Switzerland but roasted in Evansville, Indiana by the Bishop Coffee Company. So, was our government right in confiscating Ludwig Roselius' Kaffeehag property? Let's take a closer look at Ludwig. He was born in 1874 in Bremen in the German Empire. Now, we don't know much about his ideology during World War I, but after the war, Ludwig believed in National Socialism and initially supported Adolf Hitler. He met with Hitler in Bremen in 1922. Ludwig applied for Nazi Party membership twice, but was rejected both times because he promoted what the Nazis considered degenerate art at his company headquarters on Betzerstrasse. That's a street in Bremen. Ludwig was a lifelong art collector. In 1934, Ludwig met with Hitler again, and Hitler criticized him for the artwork on what is now one of Bremen's main cultural landmarks. Ludwig knew not to confront Hitler and quickly steered the conversation away from his artwork. Ludwig was a patron member of the German SS. Well, that means that he did not take part in active duty, but he contributed money to the SS. He was a member of the National Socialist Academy for German Law. That's an institute for legal research and reform in Nazi Germany. Joseph Goebbels appointed him as a board member of the Council of the German Advertising Industry. Now, it makes me wonder if Ludwig's participation in Nazi activities was because of his ideology or because it just made good business sense. Whatever the case, Ludwig fell out with Hitler. In September 1936, Hitler denounced Ludwig's Betzerstrasse and his views at the Nuremberg Nazi Party rally. In 1942, Ludwig joined the German resistance against Hitler. 68-year-old Ludwig Roselius died on May 15, 1943, of natural causes. During the war, most of the Betzerstrasse was destroyed. Following the war, Ludwig's company rebuilt the houses in the street that Hitler declared was full of degenerate art. It's now open to the public. If you take a look at the building beside Ludwig's corporate office, you'll see the Ludwig Roselius Museum, which houses Ludwig's degenerate art collection, which includes pieces from the Middle Ages to the Baroque era. And it's also open to the public. Take that, Hitler. Now, when I began researching Sanka coffee, I had no idea it would take me on a path to World War I, World War II, Nazism, Hitler, the German resistance, and the preservation of degenerate art. This is just one of the many reasons why I'm continually fascinated by Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story. You just never know what you'll learn. But now, I think it's time for a cup of coffee. Don't you? I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. Be sure to share this video with a friend because we want them to know the rest of the story.